You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with M.Needom. Hi gang, Donna here. Thank you for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. I really do appreciate you being here. Whether you're listening on Audible, Spotify, whichever channel you're listening to, or watching on YouTube, I really do appreciate it. This has been a journey for me and it's passion, and this is the end of season 2, which is kind of hard to believe that, that's 42 episodes that I've done, and it's kind of exciting. So today I decided that I reached out to somebody that I thought would be an interesting guest. He has a new song coming out today. And I thought that, you know what? You guys deserve to hear his story. He's kind of a newer artist, even though he's done some other things. He was in a band called Papa Ya. He also has done some things that you may not realize he actually did. The DJ Kangaroo in the Super Bowl ad, well, he did that. But there's a little bit more to him than just those little jingles. And Papa Ya, he currently has 2 singles out. One is called Dead Days and Gatorade, and the other is Don't Feel Like Dancing. And today he has a new song releasing called Lose Somebody. This song and the other 2 were part of a collaboration project with Duran Duran's John Taylor. So Nate Merchant is who I'm talking about. And he likes to go by the name of Merchant. That's his musical name. So if you're looking for his music on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're going to look for it, look for Merchant. His social media is usually at It's Merchant. So what are we talking about today? Well, of course, we're going to talk about the song. And of course, we're going to talk about the collaboration. That's kind of a given. But his Better 2 moment actually takes us to him making a decision about I don't want to say dropping out of school, because he finished 4 years of college, and that pretty much for most people is you're done. But he had this opportunity. He could stay in college, which is the safety net, and a lot of people would do, or he could move to LA and pursue his dream, which was music. And his journey of music is one that has been lifelong. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, obviously, we know what the Better 2 answer is going to be, because he's got 3 songs out, 2 that have been out previously and 1 that's new. And he's got more music coming. So you know the answer. But do you know the story? That's the thing. We don't only talk about music. We talk about life, as always, on this podcast. And we just had a lot of fun. I mean, we got into some different subjects, different topics. We talked about Z Nation, which his dad does. We talk about Strange Frequency, which is another project that his dad does. We talk about him dabbling in acting, and he actually was going to do some acting until the pandemic. That's a really good thing. Everybody's like, I was going to do this, but then the pandemic. So anyway, I digress. You can hear all this in the podcast. If you really like the show, please tell your friends, or go to Apple and give us a review, or YouTube and leave a comment. I'm most definitely will respond. I appreciate you guys. I really, really do. And I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did taping it. We had, like I said, it ended up being about an hour and a half conversation, and it was a lot of fun. And hopefully one day I can have him back. So tune in, guys. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Nate. How are you doing?
Hello, Donna. I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I really do like your lighting effect. It's very 80s and it's very peaceful and it's very nice.
Yeah, I feel like I should get a Virgin Airlines sponsorship or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, sponsorships are always good too.
Yeah, there we go. We're on to something.
This is true. So I'm going to I know what we talked about. We actually had a little call yesterday. So I know we talked about a certain topic, but I want to go back to you growing up in Oregon. So basically, it's rainy there all the time, right? So you didn't get to do a lot of outdoor activities necessarily?
It's funny because I was actually just visiting just a couple weeks ago, and the summers in Oregon are among any place I've been, like among the most beautiful places in the world, I think. And it's sunny and it's the perfect temperature, and you can go to the lake, you can go to the river, you can go hiking, you can do so many different things. And that is very short lived. There's probably 2 to 3 months out of the year that are like that. And the other months out of the year are 40 degrees, sideways rain, dark clouds, dark at 4 p.m., pretty miserable. It's funny though, because you grow up in one place and you don't, you get to a certain age, you realize, oh, not everywhere is like where I grew up, so it's funny to come to California and it's, sunny, 360 days out of the year and a whole different vibe. So it's been interesting.
I got to go to Portland once, and it was actually to see James Angel perform.
Okay.
My friend worked for the airlines at the time, and she's like, "Hey, let's go." So we did, and your friend, Mr. Taylor, was there performing, playing bass. So we went there, and the first day we were there, it was a gorgeous day. And the next day it rained, and it was just insane.
Yeah. It'll turn on you real quick.
Yeah. Well, New Orleans is like that too. I mean, New Orleans, that's where I grew up. It'll be fine, perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden, here comes a downpour. And you think, okay, it's going to be a little relief from the heat. But no, now it's just humid as anything.
Yeah. That's
So,
I haven't spent much time in the South, but I went to Florida. We had like a family vacation, went to Disney World one time, and it was that same feeling. It's like, oh, it's so hot and muggy, and then the rain comes. It's like, all right, well, now it's worse. So
exactly.
you get a little bit of that.
So from looking at your dad's background, because your dad was a disc jockey at one point, correct?
Yeah, on Kink in Portland.
So this I would say he kind of fostered your music career. I mean, I know that you took piano lessons at what, age 8?
Yeah, I would say, both my parents definitely influenced me in that way. I think my mom is a piano player. She grew up playing piano and taking lessons and stuff like that. And there was a piano at my grandma's house that we would play. And then, I sort of took a liking to it. And then she ended up being like, oh, well, I don't use it, so she gave it to us. So we have to have it at our house. So I had a piano around growing up, and that was because of my mom. And my mom loves music. She, she'll turn on music in the morning, and she's a big runner, and she listens to music and makes playlists and will show me different songs and stuff like that. And then, same thing with my dad. He's a huge music fan, big music lover, and I would say he's a hobbyist in terms of his instrumental capabilities. But there was one day where my dad came home and he was like, I bought some guitars. And so he just had like an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, and he was like, all right, let's do it, and so he was getting into it. He bought an amp and stuff, and it was funny. I picked up the guitar immediately, and it was a right-handed guitar, and I'm left-handed, and so I picked it up to strum this way, and then he immediately went, oh shoot, he's not gonna be able to use this. So I actually learned guitar right-handed, even though I'm left-handed, because that was just what was around. But no, I think both of my parents were very had a big influence on me in terms of having that around in the environment. They didn't like make me do anything, but it was like that was definitely available to me if I wanted it to.
Nice. I see that you got your first electronic drum kit at 11. I guess the good thing about an electronic drum kit coming from a parent standpoint is you can plug headphones into it.
Right. And then you just get this annoying, wood stick on plastic sound, which is, probably more livable than actual drums. But it was a fantastic birthday that year. I was really looking forward to getting some drums, and got the electronic drum set. And I remember I just played for hours in a row, and that became my obsession. I was the type of person growing up where I bounced around to a lot of different things, and I have a bunch of different little hobbies and stuff, and some of them would stick and some of them wouldn't. But I think what was cool about, getting into music is that I could switch and I would still be under the umbrella of, I do music, so I could get into guitar for a few years, and then that doesn't quite interest me as much as it used to. Let me play some drums, so I could bounce around, and like that would, satiate that need to be doing something different and new and exciting. And I was still, without knowing it, kind of progressing toward the same goal in the end.
So when you get the drum kit, I mean, you obviously wanted the drum kit. Did you sit there and think, okay, I want to be a drummer? Was there somebody you idolized about being a drum player?
Probably Neil Peart. I think I was really into Rush at the time. But my capabilities were not anywhere in the realm of being able to do anything like that. I would just put songs on. The cool thing about the electronic drum set is I would have a pair of the Apple earbuds that I would put in my ears, and then I would put the headphones on top of that, they
Okay.
would have the drum kit sound. So I would have two pairs of headphones on,
Wow.
and then I would be. I'm sure there was a better way to do it, but when I was 10 or whatever, I was just like, oh, this is what I'm doing, So I had the two pairs of headphones on, and you try to drum along to stuff, and I'm sure there was some Tom Petty in there. I'm sure there was some Rush in there. I'm sure there was some Led Zeppelin in there in terms of stuff I was trying to drum along to.
But in a way, you were already kind of starting to, I don't want to say produce, but having the two different sounds to keep up with, you could see how music worked.
Definitely, definitely. And I think the producer part of me came a little later because we were always like, we had like Apple products. That was our allegiance. So we'd always have the family computer that would have GarageBand on it. And so that was kind of my introduction to being like, what if I take this drum loop and this guitar? What do those sound like together? And what if I sing over that? Like different stuff like that. That was cool. There was also a video game. It was called like MTV Music Generator or something like that.
Hmm.
And it was on PlayStation 2. And I would, you play it with the PlayStation controller, but it had like a sequencer, and you're taking different loops and sound effects
Nice.
and musical ideas and putting them together. But it was a video game. And that was exciting to me as a kid of like, oh, I'm still playing video games, but I didn't realize I was like making music basically, not creating anything, but putting loops together and whatever. And that's still the foundation of what I do now. It's, I'm usually the one making the loop, but then you're still putting pieces together and solving that puzzle and figuring out what things can go together and things like that, which was definitely, looking back now, I'm like, oh, that was probably where that curiosity was sparked originally.
Isn't it kind of crazy though to think that a video game inspired you like that, and now you're
Yeah,
still doing that?
yeah. And Guitar Hero was a big one too. I spent so many summers just playing Guitar Hero, just like trying to get everything down on expert and whatever. And my friends we would challenge each other and stuff. And that was another one, and a way to get introduced to different music and stuff, because there was definitely gaps in what my parents weren't listening to that I found in other places. And that was definitely, there was a Guitar Hero 80s that I would play. So that kind of filled in a couple of the gaps of stuff that I wasn't hearing at home necessarily.
So I want to go to when you're taking guitar lessons, you had a neighbor. And I mean, it wasn't just any neighbor that kind of became your mentor, wasn't it? For songwriting and
Right. Yeah, he was in music school at the time. He was at Berkeley, and yeah, he would like come home for the summers and was a family friend and stuff. And so I was like getting into guitar, and my dad had bought me like a mini Fender Strat that was like a
nice.
3/4 size or something. It was like this red Stratocaster, and I would play that. And yeah, and so our friend Sam would come over, and he was 10 years older than me at that point. Well, at every point. But yeah, and so he would basically just come in and say like, oh, like what are you listening to, what songs are you liking, whatever. And then he would just teach me whatever song I was into and stuff. So it was kind of a cool way of doing lessons, because I was just learning the stuff I was liking. It wasn't like we're gonna learn this chord and that chord and this scale, and like it was like I was learning the songs I was liking, and it was learning music in the process. And so I think that's was a big foundation for me of how I learn music and what still excites me now. It's like I'll still hear a song that came out on Friday, and I'll listen to it. I'll be like, oh my gosh, and I gotta grab my guitar and then figure out how did they do that and what and kind of, I'm always like learning and taking things apart and trying to figure out how did they make that happen.
I think once you become a musician, you start dissecting songs. You can't listen to a song as a whole.
Yeah, which is a blessing and a curse. I think sometimes I miss being able to just turn my brain off and just hear the music and stuff. And sometimes for me that's concerts. So like when I'll go see a concert. I saw me and my girlfriend saw Local Natives at the Greek a few weeks ago, and I was really into them in high school, and then I kind of hadn't been catching up with them and stuff, or keeping up rather. And so a lot of the songs I was hearing were new for the first time, and I found myself just enjoying the music and not being like, oh, they're going to the minor 4 right there, like
Yeah.
I was just hearing it and was like, oh yeah, this just being in the moment and enjoying, which is few and far between at this point because I'm so analytical.
Well, part of it might be also because we have been away from live music for so long too, so now it's just
Yeah.
a feast for your ears.
Right. Yeah.
So you ended up, I mean, by this point you're really immersed in the music. So you decide you're going to go to college, and you went to University of Oregon.
Yeah,
And you studied music, correct?
I did. Yeah. the funny thing is I didn't get into the music school until I was a sophomore. I applied 3 times and didn't get in. And so I was really bummed. And so I think we drove down to Eugene my senior year, and in order to get in, you had to like know all these scales and arpeggios and these different requirements and stuff, and be able to sight read music. And I didn't know any of that. And so I just came in and I was like, I know how to play guitar and sing, and that's what I'm into. Like, this is what I do. And I played him a song, and I didn't get in. And I was like, oh shoot. And so I kind of realized, I was like, all right, I gotta kind of play by the rules. Like, I'm not gonna be able to get in by just, playing him a song. And so I worked really hard for like 2 years, and I learned all the stuff, and finally got in, which was a relief. But I feel like that's been my experience with almost any level that I get to in music. It's like it's really not easy. Like
No.
you get told no a lot, like way more than you get told yes, and you kind of just have to be like, all right, and then regroup, and then figure out what you need to do to go back next time and give it another shot. And so I think those were good lessons. But yeah, music school at University of Oregon was a time.
It was a time, and you told me yesterday, this kind of goes to your better two moment, that you decided against your parents' wishes to kind of say, I'm done.
Exactly. Yeah. And the hard part about that was it was after 4 full years of school there.
Uh-huh.
So I did the 4 full years, and I think, like a lot of people, probably not the majority, but a lot of people, it sometimes takes more than 4 years. And so I had the choice of, do I want to move to LA, which I think around the time of my sophomore year was when I started working with my mentor Sam, and he was kind of showing me about like the pop songwriting world and stuff like that, and all the stuff that was going on in LA. And then it kind of, that's where I had my eyes set. The last 3 years I was in college was like, oh, I just got to get to LA as soon as possible. And so my focus most of my time in college was on other things besides college. I was
No.
yeah. Exactly. And so I was in my room a lot making music, and skipping class, and just I went to bed at 3 a.m. and had this new song idea, and I wake up at 7 and I start working on it again. It's like it was just like an obsession for me. And there got to be a certain point where I was basically just in my room making music and not going to class or doing anything like that. And so I kind of got to the end of the 4th year and was like, all right, well, I can either stay here and keep, messing this up, or I can go do what I have been wanting to do and, give it a shot. And so that's kind of what I did. I said, all right, I'm just going to move down to LA and give it a go.
How upset were your parents?
I think my mom was more disappointed than my dad, but I think they were cool. They basically said, like, this is your life and you're going to have to deal with whatever the consequences are, and you're an adult now and you can make your own decisions. And this is what I would recommend, but I'm going to love you and support you no matter what you do.
That's awesome.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But no, I think my parents have always supported me. And I think I've always been someone who's kind of gone against the grain of things and not done everything the normal way and not followed all the rules probably. And I think, I'm someone who's kind of had to maybe at times learn things the hard way and just go find out, and so I think that's plays into this as well. But I also think when you're pursuing music, you can't really have like a backup plan. You can't be like, oh, if it doesn't work out, I'll just do this and do this other safe option, because then it's like you're not going to be able to give it everything that you need to succeed, which is what it takes. It's such an incredibly difficult profession choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually talked to somebody last night, and it was kind of funny because we had the conversation yesterday about this very thing. And as I'm talking to him, he's a musician as well. He's 31, I think. And he's telling me how he had the opportunity after high school. His friends are like, hey, we're in LA. Come out to LA. You can do your music out in LA. And then he's like, I sat there and he's like, I was sort of seeing someone at the time and I let fear get me. So you should commend yourself, because I know there's a lot of people that fear will block them from taking that next step. So you should be very applaud yourself for taking that step and taking that risk.
Thank you. That means a lot. I mean, I think I'm more afraid of the feeling of not going for something that I'm excited about. I think the feeling of what would have happened if I really gave it my all? Then maybe would it have worked out? Would I have gotten the fulfillment I wanted? Whatever. I think that is more scary to me than trying and failing.
It's the big what if. And somebody once told me, there are no memories without the risk. And that's the truth. I mean, you have some fantastic memories now, I'm sure, because, once you leave, you have a band now. You start.
Right.
And how did Papa Ya come about?
Yeah. So that was me and my buddy Alex Sacco, and we were roommates my freshman year of college in the dorms, and then we reconnected again senior year, and we lived in a house together, and he had his studio on the second floor in his bedroom, and I had my studio in my bedroom in the basement. And so it was a very loud house.
I'm sure.
And I feel bad for our old roommates, but yeah, we just had this idea. We were driving around one day, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to start like a side project together?" And I was like, "Sure." And so we just started making a bunch of music, and yeah, so we made music all senior year, and then we didn't put it out until 2016, which was like a year after, and it immediately started like doing really well. So my kind of like, oh, move to LA to see how it goes, was like, oh, this is like sort of instantly working really well. This is nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we had our first songs that were coming out were going viral on Spotify, and we pretty immediately got on a big tour with an artist named Max, and had a lot of fun. And then our issue was that we couldn't get enough music finished to release and keep the momentum going. So our initial 3 songs that we made were pretty much done the year before, and then we put them out, and it was like, oh, we haven't made enough music to make this a real thing and stuff. And so the momentum kind of died out, and then we our interest started to go in different directions, and then we decided to call it quits at the end of 2019. But I think that was a fun experience for me, and I think I learned a ton. And I think sometimes when things come easy, you don't realize how lucky of a situation that was, or trying to that doesn't happen to everybody. That your first songs come out and start like blowing, you're like, oh, what was that? How'd that happen?
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, having somebody to do it with at the time, while it's great and you have that support system, if you go to creative differences, then it becomes a little awkward for you, because then where do you go next?
Sure, definitely. And I think my biggest thing and what I'm excited about with my solo project is that I feel like I'm telling the truth, and I'm being honest, and I'm presenting myself in like a genuine, authentic way. And the music sounds like the music that I love, that I want to make. And the lyrics are about things about my life, or about stories of my friends, and, real things that have happened. And I think that's a really exciting step for me. And it feels purposeful, which is exciting.
Well, that's one thing I was going to say. Sometimes when we have music, especially dance music, because I know some of your songs are upbeat, and they, one has the nighttime feel, and the other one is kind of dancey. Even though you say I don't feel like dancing, there's still meaning in that song. And I look at some of the groups in the 80s. One that comes to mind is the. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not, but they had some dance tracks, and they had a song that they did with Sinead O'Connor. But if you actually listen to some of their songs, there's some political meanings and some universal meanings in there. But you wouldn't, if you're just listening to it as a dance track, you're not thinking about what the lyric is.
Right. It's a little disguised. And I think that's something that's been fun to incorporate in my music is I mean, I Don't Feel Like Dancing is a good example, where it's, it's a song where it's about a breakup and dealing with that heartbreak, and how are you going to handle this. And it's a super upbeat, fast, exciting song that makes you want to dance. So that was kind of like an interesting juxtaposition, and like reeling someone in with like, I feel like there's just so many sad songs that sound sad,
Yeah.
you know, and you kind of know what you're going to get. And you're like, okay, I get it. There's some slow piano chords and you're talking about your heart breaks. All right, that's cool. And so I think what's been exciting for me is to like, how do you like, I have those feelings. I feel sad. I feel emotional a lot, whatever. And it's like, how do you wrap that up in something that's like, okay, I also like to dance. I also like to, you know, be excited and jump around and whatever, and listen to music that's exciting, you know? So it's, how do you kind of bring those worlds together and marry those two opposites sort of?
Well, and when you think about life in general, you know, a lot of the times in public we put on that smiling face, we put on that joy, even though internally we have other stuff going on. So when you have a song that you can share with the world and everybody in that moment is dancing and happy, but maybe later on they're actually just listening to it, and then they can find the other meaning, and maybe it hits them and goes, oh wow, yeah, I know that, I understand that feeling. That says that the music is well rounded,
Thank
because
you. That's, yeah.
it not only is the dance pop stuff, it's something that can resonate with them in their heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's how like we operate in society too. Like you're not supposed to walk around with all of your stuff hanging
Yeah.
out about how sad you're, you know, it's like you see someone at the grocery store, oh hey, how are you? Good. All right, I'm good too. All right, good to see you. Bye. You know, like it's
Yeah.
like you're supposed to be good all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the facade of the music, and the sonic landscape is that, you know, I'm good. And then underneath is the lyrics of like, okay, not so good, you know,
Yeah.
and like here's
Yeah.
what's going on. Which I thought was something interesting
It
to
is.
say and do.
It is. I mean, that's been this year. I mean, when you think about 2020 and 2021, we have had a lot of people that are smiling and acting happy, but there's a lot of sadness going on. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's been many times I lost my husband last year, and I'm not bringing this up for a big major thing. I can do the podcast. When it came around to the year anniversary, I was still doing the podcast. I was taping the podcast, and I'm all smiles and everything. And then I'd log off and I'd be in tears because
Sure.
it's a
Yeah.
year, you miss them. But the whole thing is, to the world, you put on the persona. And that's what you do in your music. You're putting on something that they can find joy in, which is something that is a saving grace. But, and I have to ask you, when you're writing, do you ever find yourself maybe near tears when you're writing lyrics? If you're really
There's
digging deep?
definitely some moments, definitely. Yeah, I think when I'm in the moment of making something, I'm very focused, you know, so I'm very intense and stuff. And then I think those emotional moments come when you listen back to what you did and you hear the way the melody fits over the chords with the lyric that you've spent 8 hours trying to figure out, and it means the thing that you wanted it to mean. And it's like it comes together and you're like, oh shoot. And I think that's like, of anything, of like a standard that you're trying to get to, it's like the Beatles, like Yesterday, it's like, oh, the song, like the melody says the same thing the lyrics are saying, and it fits so beautifully together over the chords, and the tone of the voice is right, and it's like everything just like is like, whoa, you know, and you get that moment. And it's like that's one of the hardest things for me, is like you have this feeling that you can say, oh, the song's going to be about this, and you have this emotional moment in your life and that you want to talk about. And you know, 1,000 times before I've tried to put that into the song, and then you listen to the song back and it doesn't say the same thing that you were feeling. It says something different and you're like, shoot. So it's like, I feel like songwriting is like, the better you get, you're getting closer and closer and closer to like translating, like, okay, when someone who doesn't know what I just felt listen to this song, do they feel that same thing? You know, and that's the peak goal.
Yeah. Being a writer is the same way. I mean, I can sit here and say, okay, I want the scene to go this way, but it's not necessarily going to go this way. Sometimes it'll go off on wherever it wants. But for me, like you, it's like I want people to feel when they're reading. I want to connect with them emotionally. And that's the same thing with music. You want to connect with them. And when you
Right.
have that perfect song, you have that perfect marriage. But then I have to ask you, you know, because for an author, when their book is about to come out, it's like having a baby. That is your baby. That song is your baby. My book is my baby. How
Yeah.
nerve-wracking was it when you released Dead Days in Gatorade? I mean, were you leading up to that? Were you like just holding your breath, dare I say?
It wasn't, no. It was really exciting. I think I'm able to detach myself from like if I were to put out the song and then the next day I listen to it, I go, oh, why didn't I change this, whatever, it's like that would make me pretty miserable. So I think I'm able to like detach myself from like, you know what, this was the art that I made at this point when these were my capabilities and that's what I did. And then when it comes out, it's like, well, that's that, stamp in time of what that was, and so I try to not like get too wrapped up in that kind of stuff. But it was extremely exciting. It was the beginning of an era for me, and of putting myself out to the world, and that was a really exciting step to take.
So what made you come up with the title
Dead Days and Gatorade? That's so funny. So yeah, I had the first two lines of that chorus I wrote like 2 years ago. So I had maybe I've had enough of the pills and the Chardonnay and the girls I don't even know. I've had enough. And then I didn't have anything else after that. And I was like, all right, like that's pretty weird. Like I'm just gonna like, that's like kind of like a almost like too personal or embarrassing. So I'm like, I'm just gonna like put that away.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's not gonna end up being a song. And then there was a moment where me and John were working on stuff, and we probably had 10 songs we worked on before we got to Dead Days. And one of his thoughts was like, oh, let's like get a little more personal on the lyrics and stuff, and go just dive in that next layer of like what is that underneath there. And so I kind of had been thinking about that week after he told me that, and I don't even know how I found it, but the voice memo was in my computer, and it said like, I get all cocky with my title. It was like new hook idea, amazing, incredible, must fit. Like I like tell myself all these to get myself pumped up. So I like listened to it. I was hearing it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, let's figure that out. And so I like put like new chords on it and stuff. And then, yeah, and then it just sort of like came out like the Dead Days and Gatorade. And it's like the meaning of it is like, like in college, we would like, you have a night out, late night out party and whatever. And then it seemed like everybody I knew had like a Gatorade by their bedside for the next day to like recover or whatever. And that was kind of like before we discovered Pedialyte. That was that was the fix. And so it kind of just like all fit in with those days of like, all right, those are the wild days for young Nate. And it kind of was that time that of leaving that behind and figuring out like, all right, I've had enough of that. What else is out here for me in the world that is going to fill me up, And so that kind of is where that came from.
I think, both that and prior, when you were saying you're able to detach, I think your time with Papa Ya actually allowed you to, how do I say this, detach, be able to detach, because you know what that success is like. And
sure.
you also know that, okay, I don't want to be known for beach music. While I wanted to do dance music still, I wanted to have meaning and feeling. So once again, going back to that experience you had, it taught you a lot, like you said.
Definitely. I think, yeah, you get used to like, oh, millions of people have heard this song, and then you start reading the YouTube comments, and like a lot of them are nice, and then some of them are like, oh, this is the worst song ever. Like you get used to like, okay, like some people are gonna like this, some people aren't, whatever. And then in that case, it's like, I think one of the lessons is like, okay, well, this is going to be out here and it's going to be forever. So I want to make sure that I say something that's real, And so that was something that was made important to me. And I think, everybody probably learns different lessons from things, but that was, for me, that was like, all right, that is the at the top of the pyramid for me of what's most important.
I do have to ask, on Instagram, you posted an outtake from your video. And John's making a right turn, and then there's the lovely truck horn. Did you guys like, oh my God.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was real. That actually happened. That was my house is right around the corner from there. So we had the crew, we had like 2 cars. So we kind of had this caravan, and we were in the front with the cameras all rigged up on the car, and we were getting ready to make the first pass to go over to Sepulveda and start, doing the first rounds of the video. And so we were filming. the song was playing, I'm mouthing the words, you know, like we're doing it.
Mhm.
And yeah, John just like made this right. And it was a free ride. He was allowed to make that turn.
Yeah.
But I just, maybe he didn't see the truck coming or something, or they came up quick or whatever. But yeah, so he turns right, and then it's you know, and I'm just like, I feel just like a jolt of like through my body. I'm like, oh my gosh. So he, you know, revs
Yeah.
in, and we speed away. But that was definitely funny. And so I think that kind of marked the start of the video. It's like, all right, got that out of the way. Now we can do the video.
I mean, I saw that and I was like, when I knew you were coming on, I'm like, I'm going to have to ask because I know that had to be a funny moment. Even though it had to be a scary moment at the time, you have to look back and
Yeah.
laugh at it. Because I mean,
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is like it felt like, oh my gosh, this truck is gonna drive over us. You know, like it felt like, then you see it on the video, it's like, all right, there's like 15, 20 feet, you know, like we're okay. But in the moment, I was like, all right, this is it. We're just the first time we're gonna die.
well, look at it this way. If it would have happened, at least you were doing something you like doing.
I guess, yeah, there's the silver lining, positive.
So you've done a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but you've done some commercial work. You've done some work for television networks. You've also did a track on Z Nation.
I did, yes.
So do you enjoy doing that type of stuff more, or is that just kind of the bread and butter?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to support yourself as a musician, as an artist, whatever. So I think any way that you can find to support yourself while you're pursuing your dream is a positive thing. And you can do the starving artist thing and just be getting by and whatever, and that's like really difficult, you know. Or
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's really amazing that I've been able to find ways to you know, get paid to still do music and have time to do what I really love, which is, you know, pursuing my artist projects and things like that. So yeah, no, I definitely think it's cool. And it's like, I try to find the joy in whatever I'm doing at the moment, you know, like whether it's for a Yellowtail wine commercial, it's like, okay, well, I'm still having fun programming these drums and playing these guitars and, you know, cutting it to fit the picture. And what, you know, whatever you're doing is like, you try to like, you know, enjoy it, you know, and not
Music.
think of it as like, oh, this is the thing I'm doing that I have to do so I can do this other thing. It's like, no, I'm trying to like, you just, you know, love my life, you know.
You're still doing something that you love. You're still making music.
Right. Yeah.
I did see that you had a small role in your dad's documentary. Did you
Oh
ever
yeah. What did I
entertain in
do?
acting? I mean, would
Yeah,
you?
I walked down the steps or something and played like a young version of him or something. But yeah, that was extremely small. It was like 3 seconds.
But would you ever think of doing any more acting, or is the
Oh
video
sure.
world just enough?
No, sure. Yeah, I had a role in a movie that my dad was doing that got canceled because of the pandemic. But no, it's definitely something I'm open to, and yeah, I would think would be a fun pursuit as well.
Did you ever think about being a zombie on Z Nation?
He asked me if I wanted to, and I was like, I don't know about, because you got to sit there and do the makeup for so
Yeah.
long. It's like, I think my cousin did it or something, but like, no, there was a definitely talk of that, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. But I did a couple of songs for the show, and a couple of them I got to sing on, and a couple of them I didn't. But yeah, it was fun to be involved in what he's got going on.
Yeah, my husband loved that show. He used to watch
No
it.
way.
Yeah, he loved it. Zombies are not my thing too much, so but he loved it. It was just like, okay, he's like, when is the new season? I'm like, I don't know, but yeah. Give me
That's so funny.
Zombieland, funny zombies, yeah, but scary
I
zombies, not
feel
so
you.
much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not super into zombies, but try to support the man, whatever he does. So
I understand, which I'm going to kind of tie this into something. He did the show called Strange Frequency, and I
yeah,
know this is kind of how John and him intersect, but I have to say, for the people that haven't seen it, if you can, I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, the bit that John Taylor and Taylor Holland do about the hotel room, where John plays the messed up rock star and she is
right.
just the prissy housekeeper, is awesome. It's
It's
hysterical.
incredible.
Yeah. So this is how they intersect and this is how they meet. So how intimidating was it for you to meet him the first time? Or was it?
I don't think I was intimidated yet. which is funny because I saw him as one of my dad's friends, and I met a lot of my dad's friends. And one time I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something, and I met Roger Daltrey in a hotel room because he was the host of the Strange Frequency show. And I think what I took away from that was the thing that got me the most excited is he told me he was on The Simpsons. He's like, I was on The Simpsons, and I'm like, whoa, cool. Like, it's like he's like Roger Daltrey, and I'm like, I'm excited he's on The Simpsons. So I think there's been times where I've met people through my dad, or people, my dad's friends with, or whatever, whether successful or not. I just kind of thought of John as like, oh yeah, it's like my dad's friend, cool. Like I like Duran Duran and stuff like that. But then it's I don't think I got intimidated or really nervous to be around John until we started working together, and I was like, oh, okay, now it's like I have to prove myself as a collaborator. And so that was kind of when I started to feel more of those feelings.
When you first presented your music to him, and that was what, back in 2016 you first showed him stuff?
That was when I showed him the first songs, which I showed him a few Papaya songs and a couple other instrumental things I'd done.
And I mean, that takes a lot of guts to go to someone that's been in the music business for so long and say, hey, can you check this out for me?
Definitely. Yeah. I think I had even done some songs in 2013 that I think my dad emailed him to him or something, and he was encouraged. He basically said, keep going, keep working on it, whatever, which I was like, okay, cool. So I think that's something that you have to be okay with. If you're going to do music, you have to be okay with playing your songs to people and opening yourself up to whatever they're going to say, positive or negative. So I think by that point I was kind of used to all right, what's the worst he could say? I don't like this or something. All right. So he didn't say that. He said, this is cool stuff, keep going, whatever. It was super encouraging. He even I played him this instrumental song, and he was like, you don't even need vocals. He was like, you just get on stage with a drum and just dance around with the drum. He was dancing around the hotel room. And so he's just a character, and he's just so full of life and energetic and stuff. And so that was a cool experience. And I mean, I left that day being like, oh, this guy's awesome. I would love to show him more stuff as we get it finished, So that's sort of what ended up happening, is that, we reconnected maybe once a year after that. And so, kind of got in a rhythm of when I had some amount of music that was finished and maybe worthy of a critique, I would, bring it to John and ask what he thought, and, get his guidance and stuff like that. And so, when the pandemic rolled around, I'd been doing a ton of writing, was, locked in the house, sitting right here every day writing songs. And so I had a bunch of stuff, and, Pavia had ended probably, I don't know, 6 months, a little bit before that. And I kind of was actually kind of not wanting to do another artist project. I was like, oh, that's so much work. I don't know if I have it in me to do another pursuit like that. And so I was kind of in the mindset of, all right, I'm going to write a bunch of songs, and we're going to pitch them to other people, do that kind of game. And I think at some point, just the desire to do what I really want to do crept back in. And I was like, well, hey, these 5 or 6 songs, these sound pretty cool. This is a sound that, this is the music I like to listen to. And these stories are real stories about my life. And, my voice sounds like it fits on these songs. I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to these songs. And so I texted John, and we went back and forth trying to find a date and stuff. He went to the UK, came back, and then he invited me over for lunch. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I think this time I was nervous, because I remember I wrote a page of notes. I calm myself down in my journal. If I ever get anxious about something, I kind of journal and write down all my thoughts so it's out of my head, whatever. So I remember I did write a page of notes of things I wanted to say or whatever. I went over to his house, and we ate lunch outside, and we're chit chatting and stuff. And then he was like, all right, well, you want to play some music? And so we went into his basement. We started to play through the songs, and that was an experience I was very nervous for, because these were ones I cared about. I don't think I'd showed anybody these songs except for the other friends and stuff that I worked on them with. And yeah, I think the more excited you are about something, the more nervous you are to show it to people, because you really you care. The more you care, the more
Yeah.
you open yourself up to that. And he wasn't really reacting. You know, he was just kind of like sitting there like this. Like he listens with his eyes closed, kind of like this. And the first song finished, which actually was "Lose Somebody," which is will be out at the time of people hearing this podcast. And he goes, "Play it again." And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
That's gotta push you just a little closer to the edge. Like, okay, is this a good thing he wants you to play it again, or is it a bad thing?
Yeah. So that was definitely the feeling. And so I played it again, and he kind of looks at me and he's like, "This is great." And then we just dove into a bunch of notes, and he got really excited. He I think we listened to it like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times through each song. I played him 5 songs, and he would say, "All right, no drums until after the first chorus on this one." And so that's how "Lose Somebody," it starts out. There's no drums for the first half of the song, which is pretty unconventional. And so I think it was fun, but I just trusted him, and we just, you know, we went through these songs, and he helped shape them in different ways, and helped me finish. And then he ended up playing on a couple of them, and I think it was just that was the start of a very, very exciting, fun year for me working with John.
Well, and especially considering all things considered that, you know, we were all kind of stuck still. You know, we couldn't really go anywhere.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
he was on Reddit one day, and I had dropped him a line about if he was going to write another book. And he said he was thinking about writing another book about a musician that was stuck at home all the time for the first time in like 20 years because he couldn't go anywhere.
Funny.
Yeah. So the thing about music, especially when you are that passionate about it, when you finally hit that sweet spot, like those 6 songs, you are exposing yourself. You're exposing yourself with your heart, your soul. And if you admire somebody and you want to give them it to listen, it's got to be so nerve-wracking. So I understand the anxiety. I understand why you would write a page of notes trying to calm that anxiety down. And let me ask you this. So once he finally said he liked it, did you feel this sense of relief?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it was fun. And, you know, and he hopped over on the piano. He was like, "What are the chords to the pre-chorus? Let's put that at the start." And, you know, and we started going into all these different ideas and stuff. And then we were just having fun. And it was like, you know, hanging out with your friend, making music, you know, that was the feeling. And so, yeah, there was definitely a sense of relief.
So where do you see, you have what, 3 more singles coming out and then an EP release besides Lose Somebody?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we're going to get to 6 songs and call it an EP.
Okay. And then are you doing another EP later, or are you not
Yeah.
sure
So
yet?
basically the Nate and John portion of the project is like 10 to 15 songs. And so we basically divided it into 2 different projects, which is, you know, going to be the first EP, the second EP, which we'll start unveiling in 2022. So yeah, that's sort of how we're going to present it.
Are you hoping to remain an independent artist? Or are you looking forward to getting a record contract?
I think that's something everybody looks forward to. I think it's hard to do stuff on your own. And any way that you can get support, whether it be through some connections or some amount of financing and stuff, any of that kind of stuff is stuff that makes it easier to go on the journey, you know? So I think if the opportunity were to arise, that would definitely be something that would be exciting to look into.
The one good thing about having John in your background, you know, as a friend, now if that was presented, firstly, he can help you with your contract, at least give you the ins and outs of what you should be looking for. Secondly, I was going to say, as far as him helping you musically, I mean, the diversity in his, you know, his background of all the music that he's played, all the different types, it does resonate with some of the stuff you've done. I can tell because, you know, he's done instrumentals. He's done the rock thing with Power Station. So, and he's also, you know, of course, there's Duran. So there's this whole catalog that he can kind of guide you toward.
Definitely. No, I think we found that we have a lot in common in terms of the type of music we like and stuff. But he ended up turning me on to a lot of different music that I wasn't fully aware of. I think Billy Idol was one. I knew like the singles and stuff like that, of course. But he got me into like some of the deeper cuts.
Oh, Blue Highway is an awesome song by Billy Idol.
Yeah, he was turning me on to to be a lover.
Oh
On
yeah,
Whip My
yeah.
Smile, which was partially some of the inspiration behind Don't Feel Like Dancing, which with that the tempo and
Yeah.
That really fast drum beat and stuff. But yeah, no, I think it was amazing to just be in John's musical world and kind of absorb things like that. And I think, yeah, I mean, the cool thing about John is he's not just a musician or a songwriter or whatever. He's like really been able to help me in terms of like, okay, what do I want to look like? What do I want my album covers to look like? What do I want my font to look like? How do I want to appear in a music video? What do I want my performances to look like? How will my band be composed? Like different things like that, where it's really the whole spectrum of how do you take this music we made and present it in the right way that is in line with being like true to yourself and stuff, but also is the best way to present it, which is that's been invaluable, because I feel like I've put in my 10,000 hours on sitting in the room and writing songs and producing and drum sounds and all that kind of stuff, and I think I'm less experienced on the presenting it to the world part, which I think has been amazing to learn from John in that area.
Well, he's got enough. I would say he would have enough education in that department,
Of course.
then compared to some of the public relations people that are out there. Because while you can go to school to learn some of this stuff, there's a lot more to it if you have hands-on experience and you've walked that path.
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, that's sort of how I felt about my own college experience. It was like, I can sit here and learn about this stuff, but I think the most that I learned during that period was just making music and making bad songs and trying to figure out why they sound bad, and then continuing to go down that journey. And so same thing for any of that. It's like you just got to do it. And so being able to be around someone who's done it and done it successfully for so many years, it's like, oh, that what a cool experience.
Well, and for you, if this is your passion, then you want to get with the right people to be able to not only motivate you but level up your view of the world, dare I say. I know that doesn't make sense, but it's not just everybody viewing you, but how you view the world. What do you see the future as? And if you have somebody that can guide you, then that's important.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
And the first, we talked about this yesterday, the couple of times that I've met John, he seems to come across as a very honest person. So if he can give you a tutorial in what to do, then yeah, that's mad respect for you and mad respect for him, because you have that good collaboration.
I mean, it's amazing like how giving he is. Like the fact that he would even come to my house every week for a year and work on these songs with me. And he said in one of our Instagram lives, he was like, we could have probably stopped after like a month and been like, all right, cool, good luck, whatever. Yeah. And we just kept doing it, so it's like how generous of a guy, it's like that was really, really cool. And yeah, he's just there for me. It's like, oh, that's a good dude.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned to him once that I played bass, and he's like, the best thing you can do is play and sing. And it's like, all I did was say I played bass. I mean, and he was just on top of it, ready to talk to me about what I needed to do, which was awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself going on the road with this into,
Absolutely.
Is it just going to be a club thing, or would you try to get on as a head or an opening act for somebody?
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to any opportunities. I think that, the best part of making music is when you get to go play it for people, so that's kind of the most exciting part. And, I've toured with my previous band and stuff and had a taste of that experience where it's like, okay, this is really fun. This is the good part. And so I'm definitely eager to do that. I think, yeah, I think it's important to build like a foundation and get some music out and, you know, have some legs to stand on when you get to that point. But definitely some type of support tour is in the sights for next year.
Is there another video coming out for Lose Somebody?
Yes, but I don't have the official announcement yet. But yeah,
Did Nick Egan work on it again?
We're doing another thing with Nick Egan. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
who is fantastic, by the way.
I mean, this is what I'm getting at. You're working with some big names. So for you as a young artist, and I know you're not a young artist, but for you as a younger artist, this has got to be a big deal for you.
Super cool. Yeah, I mean, the best part about any of this is just like the friendships that you make. And I feel like me and Nick have this, you know, beautiful friendship where he's, you know, we'll be working on a project and then we won't see each other for a couple of weeks and then we'll get together and be like, I missed you, man. Cause you know, when you're working on something, you're, you know, talking every day, getting on the phone, meeting up, whatever. And there's this, you know, flow that you get in, and then you have the break and then it's like, oh, it's like, I feel like I should be picking up the phone and calling you, you know, cause it's stuff. So we have a nice rapport, and he's somebody who is, you know, has been around amazing things, has done amazing things, and knows a ton, and is another guy who's super generous and willing to sit with me and pass on that information, and you know, steer me left or right and stuff like that, and is somebody that I really admire and look to and am happy to call a friend.
That's what I was gonna say. When you can call the people that you admired your friends, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Because one thing I will say, and this may not be the best thing, back a long time ago, I went and saw the Power Station in New Orleans, and after the show, the band was at a bar, and it was an outdoor bar, and I was across the street looking in a shop window, and there's a reason I'm going to say this.
Okay.
And all these girls were clamoring around, screaming at the band. They were screaming and everything, and I was looking in this chain link fence in this shop window, and the bodyguard screams, "They're people, not animals." And something about looking in that chain link window like it was a cage really made me think about how fame is. While I sit here and say you admire these people, I understand that they are just regular people with really awesome jobs. So that's why I say that. Because that moment at 17 years old, hearing that, it really put fame into a nice little box, that they're just people. You're just a person. You know,
sure.
And most people don't think of you guys that way. Once you hit a certain echelon of fame, and I know you're not quite there, but once you hit that echelon, people are like, oh my gosh, you're screaming at you. If I was sitting here screaming at you, how would you feel? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be an exhilaration and a rush, but there's also got to be a moment of fear, because you don't know what that person wants from you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I've had that feeling where it's like, oh, I'm going into a meeting with the head of this guy who's this, you know, A&R for this big company or whatever. And then you start to go, oh my gosh, what's he going to think of the songs, whatever. And it's like, I kind of brought up one of those concerns to John, and he was like, this guy, he's the same as you. He likes music and he does music for a living. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. You know, it's like, I'm probably gonna have more in common with this person than I'm not, you know? And so it's like, I think that it's the same of anything. It's like, oh, this guy's the CEO of Nike or whatever. It's like, yeah, he's just like a guy and like eats food and has a family and what, you know, like whatever, you know? So it's like, everybody's just like a person. And yeah, I mean, I think the goal is just to be interested in people, you know? And it's like, I feel like the best way to navigate life, you know? And I feel like LA is weird because it's like, who do you know? Who are you friends with? Who did you last work with? Who, you know, it's like all this, like this idea of like clout and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just like not really what's important, you know? It's like, what's really important is like, all right, like love your friends, be nice to people, you know? I think that's the stuff that is really fulfilling at the end of the day. And it's easy, especially in a town like LA, to get caught up in like oh, how many Instagram followers do I have, and who, like, what are
Yeah.
my credits, and what is my bio? Can I update my bio? Like, all it's like, that's not the real stuff. That's not
Yeah.
what matters.
No, because let's be honest, social media is going to tell you whatever you need to hear at that moment. And then tomorrow the algorithm could change and nobody knows who you are.
Sure, sure.
But then
Yeah,
you can take that back to the music industry or writing or whatever. 1 minute you can be hotter than anything, and the next minute you can be, who are you?
yeah, yeah. And especially with, like, I feel like me and my peers at the similar level that I'm at, it's like you have your huge goals and stuff, and you want to do this and that, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, what happens when you get that? Then it's like, all right, you're probably still not fulfilled. It's like everybody knows, okay, money doesn't make you happy, fame doesn't make you happy. It's like, well, what makes you happy then? So it's like, I feel like while pursuing, like, my passion and what I'm excited about and stuff, and wanting certain things and whatever, it's like, all right, yeah, I would love to go buy a house and stuff. That's great. But it's like, what am I going to do when I'm sitting in my house and I was, wasn't there for my friend? It's like, okay, well, then what's the point at the end of the day? So I think it's like trying to, like, figure out, you go on both journeys at the same time. It's like, okay, how do I be good to people? How do I be a good boyfriend? How do I be a good son? How do I be a good friend? Whatever. And then also, how do I try to figure out how to, you know, explore my talents and gifts, and become great in that area as well. And then if success happens, great. If it doesn't, you've got your actual life to, have as well.
One thing I've learned about some talking to other people on the podcast, it's about expectations. And, you know, have your own expectations. Don't necessarily put it on other people. Don't look at other people and say, okay, well, I expect them to be that way. You have to live up to your own expectations. Really, that's where your success and your happiness is going to be. And I'm not saying being selfish. I'm saying be there for your friends, be there for your family, but don't set something so high as a goal of, I'm going to sell 1 million records, because what happens if you don't? If you're putting those too high of expectations on you, how are you going to feel at the end of the day? Are you just creating more stress for you? And then you can't enjoy life. You can't enjoy time with your friends.
Yeah, especially this business, like, you can't rely on any results.
No.
All you can do is the part you can control. And so it's like, that's like been a big lesson. It's like, okay, you can, yeah, I want to have 1 billion streams, cool, that would be awesome, that would probably change my life, that would be great, but it's like, I can't control that. I can, put my heart into this music, and I can try my best on this music video to make a product we think is cool and that people are going to like, and whatever. But it's like, at the end of the day, you can't, once it's out there, it's like, you're not in control of what happens. So you just have to be at peace with, like, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, I express myself, this is what I love to do, and I enjoyed the process, and we'll see what happens. And I feel like that's not always the place I am. I'm talking, my highest hopes for how I would handle something, but that's what you want to feel.
The best case scenario.
Exactly.
I have to ask, I mean, do you think this is why some people easily fall into the traps of, you hear a lot about musicians with sobriety issues and stuff. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'm not saying you do, but do you think maybe the stress of trying to have that #1 record, or have that, that great tour, and not living up to that expectations, do you think that's part of the reason why some musicians do fall into this trap?
I don't know. I mean, that's a big, complicated question. I don't know. That's definitely probably a piece of it. The other piece, I think, creative people in general probably have more the personality of reaching for something to get some certain feeling. I feel like that's part of it too. And I think, like, I'm probably, like, addicted to music in some way. Like, I love the way it feels when you write a song and you listen back at the end of the day, you're like, whoa, I made that. It's so exciting. I accomplished my goal of the day. Great. Like, that's a certain type of experience. It's almost like spiritual or something. There's something very, like, magical about it. And yeah, if you're in the mode where you're like, what's the next thing that can make me feel like that right away, then
Yeah.
maybe you find something else.
I mean, well, that's the whole stage high. When you leave stage, because I've been on stage a couple of times. When you leave that stage, you are so keyed up and amped up. What is going to replace that? You can't go to sleep right away. And what is going to replace that? So you have to find a balance. So, and I have to ask, not being on the road, but because you're so creative as far as music, is there a time at night when you wake up and it's like, you may go to the bathroom or whatever, and all of a sudden your mind is like, oh, wait, here's a melody for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big voice memo guy. So I have my voice memos app on my phone, and at the weirdest times is when you start to get an idea. And it's like, I used to be like, oh no, I don't want to record that right now. I want to go to bed, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you miss it, and then, and it's like, that could be something. And a lot of times maybe it's not as good as you thought it would. You're like, you wake up and you go pee or whatever, and you're like, oh, I've got this idea. You record, and then you listen to more, you're like, I'm not going to work on that today, but then sometimes you get one and you're like, oh, wow, what was that? You're driving randomly. And I drive with no radio sometimes, because it's like, I'm just hearing music all the time. So it's like, sometimes you just want, I probably seem like a psychopath just driving with like in silence, but yeah, then sometimes you get thinking about something and you start singing something, and it's like, that's the coolest thing, is when you just have like, it's like, what even is this? Like, I'm just existing, and then all of a sudden there's a song that, it's like, that's why I feel like you can't always take credit for stuff. It's like, I didn't sit here and be like, it's gonna go like this, then it's gonna go like that. It's like, sometimes you're just sitting there and then it just, there's something playing in your head. It's like, what is that? Like, where did that come from? Which I think is a very curious question.
My book, My Days with the Dark Muse, kind of played out like that, because I started writing it as this bass player in his journal, and it just morphed into a novel finally. But I would have he's got drug issues, but I would have rehab centers, because it was a blog. I had rehab centers like liking the post and everything, and I'm like, so you guys think this is real? Okay, so let me just keep writing. And so I ended up turning it into a book, and it's got some twist in it, but yeah. But I mean, once again, people, because it's written from a guy's point of view. I am not a guy, but I've had guys read it and they're like, I can't believe a woman wrote it. So where did that come from? I wrote it, but did I have some other help, like your music,
Yeah. No, I think it's very funny. It's like, where do ideas come from, and how do they come, and why are some people more creative than other people? It's like, it's a interesting question.
But creativity is wonderful, but it can also be a curse at times too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's times where if I don't write a song for like a week or something, I like am physically unwell. Like, I'm like, it's like, there's something, I'm like, why am I in a terrible mood? And like, I'm mad all the time. It's like, oh, you didn't get the stuff out,
Yeah.
So it's like, that's a funny thing too. And I think, it's just, you just got to do it. And it's exciting and it's fun. And the funny thing is, I grew up having like ADD and stuff like that too. So it's like, there's, I've always been someone who's like, it's hard to sit down and like do work, And so, when music was more of like a hobby and stuff, like in high school, it's like, I would be doing homework and it's like, oh, I can't wait till I can play the guitar and mess around or whatever. And then when you start to have music be your job and stuff, and you're just, this is what you wake up and you just got to do it. There's times where it's like, oh, this is, it's difficult to start and stuff, And so I've had to like find different habits to get myself to do it, even though it's a thing that I love so much and I can't live without and whatever. But it's like, sometimes if I'm not disciplined with myself like that, and then I let it go 3 or 4 or 5 days where it's like, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, then it's like, it just like boils up where it's like, I gotta go do this, So I feel like a lot of creative people have that same issue though. It's like, well, if I'm meant to do this and I love this so much, why can't I sit down and do it? Why is there a struggle to making this if I love this so much?
I get it. As a writer, I will have days where I want to write and it's not coming, and I want to write and it's not coming. I go to bed at night and I wake up and there's the idea and the characters are giving me ideas, and I'm like, I'm exhausted. I want to go back to sleep. So it's one of those things. And then when you sit down to write, it's like, why isn't this coming? So I completely get where you're coming from. And if I don't write like every 3 or 4 days, then I will, like you, I'll just start getting aggravated. And it's like my body and my mind, I guess, needs to get the creative energy out,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
It's funny. It's like you can't like, I think when I was younger, I would like only write a song when I had an idea for a song. And it's like, well, then I'll probably write 5 songs a year or something. You know, it's like I need to write 100 songs a year. So it's like you have to like sit down and be like, okay, well, I don't have an idea yet. How do I get an idea?
Yeah.
So, you have to do it when you don't want to do it. And I think that's like, the separation between like the hobby and the profession. It's like, this is like the craft. It's like I have to sit there and do it even when I don't feel like it. And then sometimes that's when the best idea comes. Like, oh, I don't even feel like doing this. I have no ideas. And then you start messing around. So it's like, oh, what's this? And then you follow that excitement, and then you're off to the races. And that's the really the most fun part, is when you have nothing, and then you start to see that there's something.
Yeah.
And then you follow it, and it's like unraveling something, and you're like, what is this? It's like you're decoding it or something. That's an exciting moment.
And I mean, if you keep writing, whether it be lyrics or a book, as long as you're writing, you're putting it out there, and it may be junk and you may not keep it, and that's fine, but you did it. So
Sure.
that's important.
And that's something I've struggled with too, of like, because I have like really like crushingly high standards. And so it's like, it's difficult to, sometimes I'm critiquing myself so much that I can't even get the first word out, and that's when I'm the least creative. When I'm in that anxious, like, is this any good? Is this going to suck? Am I wasting my time? Whatever. It's like, that's like the worst mindset to make anything from, in my experience. So when I can get myself to calm down and be like, you know what, I'm just going to make it, and I'm going to decide later if it's any good. And sometimes I'll revise it enough to get to the point where it's like, oh, that's good. I like that. And then sometimes you wake up the next day and you go, oh, that sucked, but at least I got a bad one out, and then maybe the good one will be coming next, so big old journey.
so you're at times you're your own worst critic.
Definitely. I've always been that way, even not with music. Like in school, if I had to write like an essay, I didn't even understand the concept of a rough draft. Like, I would write the paper and I would write the first sentence, and if it wasn't right, I would be going back to fix it. And I would do the second sentence, and then the third, and then I couldn't move on until it was perfect. And then I get to the end of it, and it's like, okay, I guess it's just like it's done. But that was like a horrible like suffering process of trying to get this out. And then I'm kind of the same way with music, but I've gotten a little bit better about just like, all right, just get something out. And then at least if I know, oh, okay, I wrote this song about a breakup and this, that, and whatever, then it's like, if I don't like it, then I know at least the song's not that. So, knowing what something isn't sometimes leads me to what it could be, which is like, if you hadn't done the first version, then you would have never would have got the second version. So
there's one quick before we'll talk about Loosen Body. Do you ever worry about imposter syndrome?
I feel that every minute of the day. Yeah. And it's very heightened at times, especially when we're shooting the Dead Days and Gatorade music video. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, JT's driving. It's like, who am I? What is this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I definitely feel that at times. And then you kind of tell yourself, I've been trying this for 10 years. I've been working so hard. There's a reason this is happening. Just do your best, and then that's kind of how you get through it. But I definitely feel that I'm like, what am I doing? That's a big thought.
The thing though is you have to consider you're not being an imposter. And maybe I'm telling myself this too. You're not being an imposter, you're being you. And if you're true to you and you enjoy what you're doing, then that's the takeaway, because not everybody gets to enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah. And you have to enjoy it. I feel like my whole life I've just looked to the next thing, and in high school I was like, oh, I can't wait to get out of this town. I want to go to college and get out of my parents' house and whatever. And then in college I was like, oh, I can't wait to get to LA. I hate it here, whatever. I don't even like college. And then in LA it's like, oh, I can't wait to be on this tour playing this show. I can't wait till this song comes out and then this happens, and I want to get a record. And it's like, man, just like enjoy 1 minute,
Yeah.
And then you look back and it's like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh man, those high school days were so fun. It was like, didn't have any bills. You just, drive around, you have a good time, you hang out with your friends, you do a little bit of school. School is not hard at all. It's about way harder in college. Life's 10 times harder than any school ever was. And it's like, you look back and everything's remembered so fondly. And it's like, I worry that nothing was enjoyed in the moment, so you try to go, okay, well, I'm in that moment now. So how do I enjoy now? Because in 10 years, I'm going to look back at now and be like, oh, what a cool time living
Yeah.
living with my brother in LA, and we were doing whatever we wanted, and no kids yet, no responsibilities, so you try to stay in that moment.
You have to. I mean, I understand completely because I mean, I went from New Orleans to Shreveport, and then in Shreveport, I'm like, me and my friend are like, we're gonna go to Dallas and we're gonna start a band. Okay, and we did. We went to Dallas, started a band, and then I met my first husband, and then we went to Indiana. Nothing wrong with Indiana, but we were living in the middle of nowhere. And then one of my friends is like, you should move to Chicago. Okay, so I moved to Chicago. So it was just, I understand, and then back to New Orleans and back to Chicago. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And you're always looking, going, well, I'm going to do this now. I moved to Chicago the second time because I'm like, I'm going to get into acting. I'm going to work on acting. And I did do some stuff, but I didn't follow through because I got chicken. I wanted the security. So if you have the security to be able to do what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing, then do it.
There we go. Yep.
So Lose Somebody. It's coming out. It'll be out the same day this is out. So most likely you can hear this and hear the song and everything. So what made you write it?
Geez, I mean, it was right in that period. I think I started it in June of 2020, and I was going through a guitar pedal phase, and so I was like, I would sit on my floor in front of my amp for just like hours and just like making different like loops and trying different things and whatever. And so I was sitting there, and then I had the start of this chorus idea. Is when you lose somebody, and it, sometimes I'll start like that, and that happened with Don't Feel Like Dancing too, where I had this chorus lyric and then you work backwards and stuff. And basically it ended up being about a relationship that a friend went through where they kind of put their all into this relationship and stuff, and then kind of lost themselves, like their own sort of identity in the relationship, and you realize you lost that person, then you lost who you were too. It's like, oh dang, and so that was kind of a concept that was really interesting to me. And yeah, so I mean, I had the start of the demo of the song, and I've been working on a bunch of stuff with my buddy Isaiah Tejada, who's an incredible producer, and he jumped in on the song and played some amazing synths and programmed some drums and did some great stuff on the song. And it was a very collaborative process. I brought in a lot of friends and stuff to work on the song, and I brought in my friend Sam, who was the guy who taught me guitar lessons as a kid and mentored me in songwriting, all that kind of stuff. And so we were solving some melodies, and then we brought in my friend Jesse and worked on some lyrics and stuff. And so we had the whole team process that was really fun. And then that was the demo that I originally played for John that first day. And then John and I came in and took the record from 70-80% onto the finish line, which was an exciting process. So I'm very excited about Lose Somebody. It's one that's really close to my heart.
Well, and that being said, it's something that is a very universal issue, because whether you're married to somebody for a long time, like I was, or you're in a relationship where you invested, especially as a younger person, we tend to invest so much into our partner. We want this to be the one. And right. When that ends, you have to discover who you are. So I can, once again, back to losing the husband, I had 16 years with him, and all of a sudden I had to rediscover who I was. So it's a very right. universal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're with somebody, it's like you try to like grow together. You try to like get interested in the stuff they're interested in. They get interested in the stuff you're interested in. You talk about everything and you do everything together. And if it were to not go well, then what happens is that power dynamic is maybe shifted, and one person is getting interested in the other person's stuff, and the other person's not getting interested in their stuff, and you get swept away in this thing, and it's like, and then you get to the end of it, it's like, oh well, who am I as an individual and stuff. And so yeah, I mean, that's like the super zoomed in perspective of what the song is about, but I think in general, I think it can relate to any sort of loss, and yeah. I think something that was interesting is we posted a teaser of it probably like 6 months ago or something on the Duran page and on my social media and stuff like that, and the responses coming in were crazy. And it was I had I lost this person in my family, and this song really means a lot to me, and things like, stuff like that. And it was crazy to see how people were reacting to it, in kind of the larger scope of what lose somebody could mean. And that was really important to me. So, I mean, that's my hope for this song, aside from any streaming numbers or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. It's like, I just want people to hear it, and hopefully it resonates with somebody, because I feel like we've all lost somebody, and I think it's an important message.
Well, and with that loss, there's always that void of, whether it be if the person passes or the relationship ends, there's that void of that person isn't there for you anymore. Whether it be their laugh, their smile, whatever, it's missing. And so
Right.
how do you fill that void? And then, yes, you also have to learn who you are. So
Yeah,
it's a multifaceted thing.
definitely.
So I thank you, Nate. I know it's been a little long. I think it's been fascinating. I've had a lot of fun doing this.
Me too.
Anything else you want to tell the people before I sign off?
Oh boy. Well, I guess I'll plug the song. Go listen to Lose Somebody on Spotify, on Apple Music, anywhere you find your music. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you guys for listening. It's really appreciated. Nate is, he's got a good personality. He has some interesting stories, and his life is a little bit of interest. So I look forward to him having much success. And I hope you guys like his song and check it out. If you haven't heard it, you must. It's a great song. And support him. He's going to, I think that in 2022, he will be someone that you need to take notice of. So if you enjoy the podcast, as I said earlier, let other people know, because you never know what somebody might find fascinating, whether it's this episode or another episode. My episodes usually, depending on what it is when you tune in, you never know what the story is going to be this time. So, if you want to support the show, I have a Patreon account, or, just send a message. If you really want to be a guest on the show, send me a message and we can talk about it. So I hope you have a great day. And this is the end of season 2, which is really kind of crazy to think about. Season 3 will be launching shortly. I'm going to take about a week off, and then I'll be launching it. And I have some good stories coming up for them as well. Season 3 is going up to 3 episodes a week, and there's going to be 24 episodes total. So, yeah, a little bit of change there, folks. But I hope you enjoy it, and, hang in there. So I'll catch you next time. Bye. You're listening to the Better 2 podcast with M.Needom.